Hi everyone and welcome back to Hungary. In this video I'm going to be walking through a few things that I recently learned about violets. You can't really see them right now, but they are right in front of me. This spring we had... He's going after a bee. This spring we had more violets growing in our garden than in any year past, and I was not sure why this was the case. And I had no idea what to do with them. And so I started to look into what violets are. So I'm going to be sharing what I learned about violets in the next few minutes. The first thing I wanted to touch on is what are violets? There are a few common names for this flower, which include the common blue violet, the common meadow violet, purple violet, woolly blue violet, wood violet, and the hooded violet. Another name that they go by is Johnny Jump-Ups. This is not a name that I use for these, but I can understand because they tend to jump up everywhere. The version that you commonly find in the big box stores, at least here in Hungary and in the States, are designated as pansies. There are distinct differences between the two, but they are closely related. These pansies are not true violets because they're a cross between wild violets and the tricolor violets. They're still amazingly beautiful, but they are crossbred to usually be bigger. True violets can be distinctly identified with the 2 petals up and the 3 petals down, whereas pansies have 4 petals up and 1 petal down. If you like this content so far, please consider giving it a thumbs up and a subscribe. And now, a word from our sponsor, which is me. So there's no word. We'll just get on with the video. The next thing I want to address is the value that violets bring. To a gardener, the violet provides numerous purposes beyond just the beauty in the garden in the late winter. The first value that it brings is the edible bits. The flowers and the leaves are both edible, with the leaves containing high amounts of vitamin A and vitamin C. These can be eaten raw in addition to a salad. You can throw them on top of a salad along with the flowers. And they can also be steamed like you would steam spinach. The roots are usually used to make laxative teas. If you're having any issues, this is a good source for that. You can also use the flowery bits as a sweet treat. If you take the flowery bit with this little bit of stem, you can beat some egg whites and paint that on the flowery bit, or spray it with some boiled sugar syrup, and then you sprinkle some sugar on top, and you let these air dry for a day or so, and then you have a sweet little treat because these are definitely edible. And apparently, candied violets used to be a popular confection. You can extract the color and the fragrance from the flower if you put it in some boiling water and let it steep for a time. If you add sugar to that water and you boil it again, you can make a syrup, and this can serve as a tonic or even cough medicine. If you add some pectin to that, you can make a lovely violet jam. I've not tried it myself, but I'm thinking I will. It's a little bit too late for that because I missed my window to pick all of these, but next year I plan to make some jams out of this lovely flower. Disclaimer, please do not pick these from roadsides or from any field that you cannot verify what's been sprayed on that, because that can introduce toxins and poisons into your system, and we don't want that happening. So please always pick these from a verified, clean source. One problem with violets is they tend to be classified as a weedy plant because they have the ability to spread out quite efficiently. They can become quite invasive if not correctly dealt with. However, this does bring me to my next point, which is our first use case. Due to the invasive properties of the violet, these can be used very well for erosion control. So if these are planted on a hillside, quite a bit steeper than what we have here, if these are planted on a hillside, the roots can dig down, and because they spread so invasively, they can help prevent erosion when heavy rains come. A lot of people use grass for erosion control, but grass has a tendency to die out when there's no rain and then a lot of rain. Violets are quite resistant to heat issues and humidity. I believe that this is the reason that we've had such a bumper crop of violets this year, because last year we had quite a dry, stormless summer and it was hot. And so I think what happened was the majority of our plants didn't survive that, and it gave way for the violets to take over and to spread effectively during the fall and the winter time, thus creating a lovely blanket of purple in our yard come springtime. And I just adored seeing those, and violets have actually now become my favorite flower. And that's actually when they produce their seeds. Little known fact. These flowers can be used in many different themed gardens, most notably in children's gardens, because they are edible, and these are things that you don't have to worry about your children picking and eating, because that's not going to cause any issues as long as they're kept clean. They also feel right at home in butterfly gardens because they are quite attracted to butterflies. I've noticed a lot more butterflies in our garden this year as opposed to last year, and I'm crediting that to the presence of all of our lovely violets. Needless to say, these can be put in your edible gardens. These do really well in pollinator gardens, mostly because they have a very long 4 to 6 week flowering stage, and so pollinators love that, and they can get a lot done with that nectar. And actually, honeybees, pollinators in general, really love the violet nectar. It's really good for them. And when they grow alongside dandelions, which are also edible, and it does really well when the bees are jumping from dandelions to violets. It's really good for the ecosystem. These also do really well in rock gardens because they do well in rocky or poor soil conditions, and they will give your succulents a run for their money. Touching on their reproduction and their living conditions, violets do really well in poor soil. Obviously they do better in good black loamy soil, but they do well in poor soil. Some of the soil here is more on the clay, just poor side. Working on that, but they have done quite well in that environment. Once the temperatures do get hot, around 27 degrees, which is about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, they do tend to die off, so they will not die off, but they will go into dormancy. So they'll disappear, but they will come out and play again once the heat has passed. Usually end of September, October, September, yeah, that's how the months go. September, October, they will come out and play again. The flowers that are lower on the plant are not actually the ones that produce the flowers, but these are the ones that produce the seeds, but not at the time you think. The flowers bloom just to bloom. And then in the fall, this is actually when the flowers create their seed pods. When the seed pods burst open, the seeds are dispersed not by birds, but they are dispersed most often by ants. So they'll pick them up and they will spread their seeds for them. For root division, this you want to be doing in the fall. You don't want to be doing this when the flowers are flowering or when they're producing their seeds. So after they've finished producing their seeds in the fall, you can transplant them, they dig them up and move them. But in general, plants don't like to be moved when they're flowering because all of their energy is going towards flowering and seed production. Seed production. So avoid doing that. The native violet's preferred living conditions is in a full sun or partial shade with moist to medium soil. This is not the case here where I'm sitting because it doesn't get a whole lot of sun. It gets a little bit in the afternoon, but they seem to do really well right here. So they will do well in pretty much any environment. Bugs. Violets do tend to attract aphids, which I'm okay with because if they're attracted to violets, they're not going after my vegetables and not going after my fruits, which I'm 100% okay with, and that makes me happy because we tend to get a lot of aphids here. In general, there are no known diseases or insect problems common to the violets, aside from the aphids, which don't harm them as much. Lastly, just let them be. Let the violets bloom to their heart's content. Keep the foliage in your lawn, because ultimately the war on lawn weeds is a losing battle. And it damages the local ecology when you use pesticides on your lawn. Yes, it will kill the weeds, but it also prevents a healthy ecosystem. So it's much easier and far more beautiful to just embrace the violets in your yard and allow them to become part of your local ecosystem. I'm really happy to have you alongside me on my learning journey here in Hungary. So until next time, viszontlátásra, and goodbye.